VR is on a slow burn. Can VR companies realistically do anything to make it blow up much bigger than it currently is? We all know the sort of various roadblocks to people adopting VR. The fact that it's just awkward, unfamiliar technology for a lot of people. It's just a lot more effort than playing a game on a TV. Sometimes you don't want to have your entire attention taken up. You just want something easy that can just sort of be a background activity, just chilling whilst playing games. VR takes a lot more of your attention, often a lot more physical as well. You're isolated from anybody else that might be in your house that you share with. Things like this. There's a lot of different reasons that people don't take to VR, even though us that already love it, I just assume that it would. Of course, it would blow up. It's amazing. Why would it not suddenly blow up? There's various very legitimate reasons. Motion sickness as well. A lot of the time people get put off by their initial experience with VR if it makes them feel queasy. So there's that to contend with as well. And the thing is, you can't really sell VR as an experience through videos, through the normal means. Someone who plays flat games might watch a video of a VR game, and of course that's not telling you anything about the experience of actually being in VR. It doesn't tell you anything about embodiment, hand presence, 3D depth perception, 360-degree real movement. All of these things that make VR so special cannot be relayed through just video or articles or any other way. The only way you can really sell someone on the experience is to get them in the headset. And as I said before, even when you do that, there's various different reasons that it might not click with somebody. In fact, might put them off. With it being uncomfortable, this feeling of isolation, disorientation, awkwardness of it currently, all these other aspects. So it's just a really hard medium to sell to people. And even when you do get the chance to demo the tech, it's still something that is only going to stick for a certain percentage of people that try it. I have had friends try VR when they come around my house, and one of them has gone on to then show enough interest to sort of buy my spare PSVR off me. Another one has borrowed my old PSVR 1, although uses it very infrequently. But many people have just, once they've had that initial, ooh, this is strange feeling, where it didn't feel compelled to then go on and buy one for themselves for any of those reasons that we mentioned. There's one thing that could really help blow VR up potentially, and that is demoing it. Actually demoing the tech and giving people a chance to get in there and experience what it's like, to have that wow moment, to have that, oh, this is what it's all about. I had no idea. Because you just can't tell that from videos or articles or word of mouth. You need to get in there and try it. And they did do this with the first gen of console VR. PSVR 1 used to have some kiosks in game shops, but that's expensive and that's time consuming and that's logistics, and they're not doing that this gen. And of course, there's a lot less game shops as well. In the UK, the largest game store chain, Game, is shutting stores all over the place, and before they did that, before they started downsizing, they bought out their competitor, GameStation. So it's, and this is of course in line with the general direction of the games industry, which is to go more digital only. Physical media being, of course, phased out. So there's less and less need for actual stores. So you have less places that would even potentially be somewhere that you could demo VR, if they were even going to do that in the first place, which it doesn't seem like they want to do. Potentially, it's a couple of reasons, whether it's down to cost and logistics, or whether it's, post-pandemic concerns about health and safety with, multiple people wearing the same headset. I don't know. They're not doing it, basically. And to me, I think that's one of the key ways that could potentially drive adoption, is giving people a chance to actually try it out. But again, it just comes with a whole range of issues to actually making that happen. Not only would Sony, for example, no doubt Sony would have to directly fund the extra staffing that would be required to man a kiosk of VR and have someone there that is knowledgeable on VR as well, so that they could walk people through the process and not just leave them to fend for themselves if there's any issues. Of course, you need someone on hand to be able to make sure that someone's paying proper attention to, motion sickness options, comfort options, making sure they know the difference between snap turning, smooth turning, all these other different things that you can calibrate to make an experience more comfortable for people if they have potential issues there. Knowing the right games to demo, being mindful of safety issues. There's so many things. It is complicated tech compared to just normal gaming. Turn on your console, pick up your controller, and you're good to go. So this is part of the issue, right? VR is inherently a slow burn industry, and I don't believe that there's anything that these companies could realistically do that would make VR blow up overnight. And we all talk about, oh, but what about the big games? If the big games kept coming to VR, you would see adoption spike. And I don't think that's true. There's very, very few games. There might be only one game that could create a noticeable, significant spike in VR adoption if it had a VR mode at launch as well. At launch being key, of course, because for all those people that might potentially be interested to check it out, if they've already played it on flats, they're going to be less inclined to play it all the way through again in a different format. So, and this was mentioned on Without Parole recently, and that is, of course, Grand Theft Auto 6. If Grand Theft Auto 6 had VR at launch, just by pure brute force of the numbers, a certain percentage of that 60, 70 million people that buy it, whatever it is, might be interested in trying it out in VR. But that's only as a result of that game's overall appeal and the sale numbers overall for that game. By pure just law of averages, you might have a noticeable spike in VR adoption with that game to get a VR mode. But that's a big if as well, because of course that game is going to be pushing the limits of what consoles are able to do as it is, reportedly. So it being able to work on VR is unlikely. Obviously Hitman's looks great on PSVR 2. They've managed to get that in VR, but of course those game worlds are much smaller, so there might be an issue there. These open world games, these huge scope, complex and large game worlds that will be on the cutting edge of what consoles are able to do. I don't know that it's a realistic proposition. So putting that aside, it doesn't seem like there's the VR adoption can be exponentially grown just through major IPs getting a VR mode. And the simple reason for that is people who love those IPs are already playing those IPs in their preferred way, right? They've been playing, say Hitman 3, right? Fantastic in VR. All of us that already love VR are amazed by that port and think, well, this is the one that's going to do it. Surely you're going to... Everyone who loves VR, Hitman is obviously going to want to try this. No, because they already love Hitman as a flat screen game. They don't feel like anything is missing from their experience of Hitman because they already loved it. That's why it's a big IP. So it doesn't need a different, completely alien, unfamiliar format to sell it to people that already love it as a TV game. So again, and that comes down to, and it's related to this fact of, people don't realize the benefits or the extra sort of appeal of VR until they've tried it for themselves. Because you play Hitman on telly, it's absolutely fine. You've got everything you need. This is how you've always played it. And you don't realize things like hand presence, embodiment, full 360-degree movement in real life, 3D stereoscopic depth perception. You don't understand how all these things can increase immersion, increase your enjoyment of the game, and they don't feel like they need it. and they don't need it because they're already enjoying it. So we haven't seen, we have had some large IPs come to VR, and none of them have significantly raised the bar of adoption. Skyrim didn't do it. Hitman didn't do it. Um, Horizon, or that was an offshoot. Call of the Mountain, although loved by many, wasn't seen as a driver of exponential, expansion of VR adoption. So that's it. I don't think that there's anything these companies could realistically do. I think it's inherently a slow burn, and it's just a case of this is where we are currently. I think that we will see VR grow. We will, because I think once you've tried it and fallen in love with it, many people, that's like the only way they want to game, because of the extra features that it does give you. Um, but it's just a slow process of actually getting people in the headset, and that's why it's inherently a slow burn. And obviously, expectations were raised during the Quest 2 era, where a heavily subsidized headset was sold at a loss by Meta, who had basically infinite money to subsidize the headset and to spend on marketing, and of course sold a lot of headsets. But a lot of those headsets were bought by parents for children who don't have disposable income to spend on games, so they're playing the free games. So it wasn't, that spike in adoption of the Quest 2 specifically did not drive a huge spike in software sales, because most of or a high percentage of those people with Quest 2s were kids that didn't have their own disposable income. And really, the reason I think it's important to get a handle on this factor of the VR current landscape is optics does count for quite a lot. So we do see influencers from time to time, and of course the general VR community, but it's obviously more visible for those that make content on the subject, complaining about what certain companies aren't doing. One that springs to mind for me, I don't want to really name drop too many, but obviously he's made a video about it a while back, and that is Petrifying Pumpkins. Big PSVR fan, became sort of disappointed with some of the output, or some of the how the library was developing, and a few months ago made a video saying he's stopping making VR content about PSVR 2 specifically, because he felt like there was just not enough AAA games coming. Essentially, he played Hitman and absolutely loved it, but that was so good, he said, that it made him disappointed with a lot of the other releases, which he labelled as Quest ports, which of course is not an accurate description of what those games are. Those are third-party games by smaller studios that, yes, are developed with Quest in mind as the lead platform, but they're not Quest games. They're not, funded by Meta Studios. They are third-party games that have to, because of market forces, target being able to be released on the leading headset. And then, of course, that is a concession when taking into account the more powerful systems that it can come out on. So, yes, it is the case, of course, that we see games that look a couple of generations behind, because they're having to cater for the Quest 2 audience and now Quest 3, although a lot of games are still targeting Quest 2, which does further restrict their ability to take advantage of newer hardware and look more impressive, which is one of the other aspects of trying to sell VR. People who play flat games, if they look at a video review of any random VR game, it's likely to be one that looks a couple of generations behind in terms of graphics. So just at face value, that's not very impressive to your average flat gamer who's busy playing, dark, Demon Souls, God of War, the high end stuff. So obviously, most VR games don't come off well in that sort of comparison, but it is a fledgling industry. The numbers aren't there to justify big investment from the big companies. They don't need to. They're already making money on flat. They don't need to waste money on a market that is unlikely to recoup that investment. So this industry as a whole is being driven by smaller studios, indie studios making passion projects that they really care about, but they just don't have the budgets or the size of big teams to make these games to a higher standard that they might like to. And so I just think it helps us to sort of acknowledge some of the realistic restrictions that are placed upon VR currently, um, and be happy with what we're getting. Really, is the basic message I'd want to get across. Is we've got so much to be getting on with and to be happy with. I don't see much room for complaints in that regard. Certainly you can make individual complaints about individual games, and I'm going to do that in this video. But overall, I think we're eating good. I think where we're at currently, given the potential return on investment, we're eating really well. And of course, we've seen studios making fantastic games that still don't get the sale numbers that they deserve, even on in the current VR landscape. You know, a game like Arcanage, who in the community we joke about it selling big, but I haven't seen that in the charts recently, and that game is fantastic, fantastic, and yet you still see regularly in the VR top selling charts things like Job Simulator and Creed, Rise to Glory, and Beat Saber, and these old games that have been around forever. Why are they still taking up space in those top tens when you've got amazing games like Arcanage, and we'll talk about in a minute, Into Black, of Lies and Rain. There's so many cool games. So it's just that we are a niche within a niche within a niche, and even those that have jumped on board with VR are not necessarily the sort of single player adventure VR aficionados that many of us in the active community are. So there's a lot of people that are playing VR, but they're playing sort of more basic games, not necessarily paying attention to reviews, and keeping up to speed with the latest sort of releases. So it's just been really, really hard for developers to find an audience to make profit on genuinely quality games, and there is sort of one thing that we do have within our control in this whole conversation, and that is with optics. So if you're someone who is sort of interested in VR, you want to see what it's about, so you go on YouTube and you type in and you look at some opinions. You might come across a lot of videos of people complaining about VR, complaining about Sony, for example, that we saw a huge wave of criticism, strangely coordinated, strangely at the same sort of time intervals over the last couple of years, complaining about Sony and what they are or aren't doing for PSVR 2. Of course, a lot of it was fabricated or exaggerated. We can only guess as to why. But tales of Sony abandoning VR and all this stuff, and they're not in it for the long haul, and they're not doing any of their own IPs, and where's all the games and all this stuff. Of course, if you dig a little bit deeper, you will find that Sony actually funded a lot of third-party games and never took any credit for it. Stuff like Legendary Tales that only got to the state that it did in the end, and the conversion to PSVR 2 because of Sony money. Same with Song in the Smoke, Rekindled. There's Sony money in Hitman as well, and obviously Resident Evil games. Sony don't take credit for that. They're just quietly in the background funding third-party ports of high-quality games. And recently we saw new patents as well. So Sony are filing new VR technology patents, which does indicate an intention, not obviously a guarantee, not a confirmation, but it obviously indicates an intention to remain in the VR space. And this has been my feeling for a long time now, is that Sony specifically have recognized that VR is inherently a slow burn industry, and they're sort of just letting their presence in the VR industry tick over, and letting it grow naturally, and not bankrupting themselves trying to force it to blow up overnight, which they couldn't anyway. Um, as I've said, those big AAA franchises that have had VR ports did not make VR blow up. You'd have thought Skyrim would have had a similar sort of pull, similar potential to do that, similar to Grand Theft Auto, or maybe a little bit behind it perhaps, but certainly one of the bigger titles in gaming history, did not really move the needle significantly in terms of VR adoption. So, maybe they've seen that you can't brute force VR to blow up, and it is just something that you have to sort of wait for it to grow organically as people come around to actually being able to try it, and with the logistical problems of being able to actually demo these things in public. Maybe that they don't see that as a feasible way of trying to make that happen. Um, so it is what it is, really. It is what it is. I find it very hard to complain about the overall picture of where we're at. I'm just grateful for what we do have. Although, having said that, again, you can obviously make legitimate critiques of specific games, um, in terms of decisions made, things that are missing, things that need updating, patching, games that were released too soon. All this stuff is valid. I'm not saying you can't have any, legitimate criticism about those things. That was just about the wider picture, and and the fact that I think, in terms of the wider picture, we are doing pretty well, and the optics of it is within our control. We can be positive about the things that we love about VR, and enthuse about it, or we can be negative, pessimistic, and complain about things that we don't have yet. And these are usually things that just aren't realistically feasible, when it comes down to economics. So I just think that type of complaining uh, isn't productive. But yeah. But played so many games recently. I have splurged, and it's always conflicting when I do this, because I always like to sort of try and wait several months after a game's come out to see if there's a chance of it coming to disc. But that's happening less and less often recently. Um, so I jumped in on a few new releases. So I did buy Reach. This is, of course, the End Dreams game by Team Elevation. It was originally touted as their first AAA project. It's good. It's fun. Yeah, it's nice. So far, so good. I am shocked that it doesn't have capacitive touch. This has been missed out of too many games on PSVR 2. It is an absolutely essential function of PSVR 2, in my opinion, and it needs to be included for any game where it's even remotely relevant to have it. Capacitive touch, of course, is where you don't need to press in the grab button all the way for it to register as holding an item. You just rest your finger on the grab button. It's so much more comfortable. So, in Reach, you are using a bow and arrow, and you're picking up guns and weapons. So you have to hold the grab button in with this finger the entire time that you're using it, as well as, obviously firing the trigger and moving the thumbstick around as well for movement. And it just gets fatiguing. It is not a natural thing to have to hold this, your middle finger in, and depress it at some sort of pressure. It's not natural. It's not comfortable. And obviously PSVR 2 has this capacitive touch feature, which by all accounts is not difficult to implement, because you've got very small studios using it. Games like Cosmo Dread, super low budget, super tiny team, but they have implemented capacitive touch perfectly. And in that game, everything is just so comfortable. Opening doors, picking up items, moving things around, using guns, everything's just so comfortable because of the fact you've got capacitive touch. And it's the same on games like, Resident Evils use it, Into the Radius. Many do, but some don't, and it is so noticeable when they don't use it. So, I did trust the reviews that I saw that said maybe it needs a couple of patches for it to really be so you can recommend it. But I jumped in. It looks great in the headset. It's fine. It does use reprojection, which I'm surprised by because it's not the most graphically intense game. It's nice looking. Don't get me wrong, but there's better looking games on PSVR 2 that use 90 hertz native. So hopefully that can be added in future. I might put that back on the back burner for a little while, and see if they can add capacitive touch and maybe 90 hertz native. But that's that. I can't think of any examples. No, wait, I can think of one example. That was Galaxy Kart. It was a game that came out with reprojected and then updated to 90 hertz native after launch. And maybe there's other examples as well. So fingers crossed that they will do that. They are still patching. Let's hope they can increase performance a bit on PSVR 2. But the main thing I need for Reach is that capacitive touch. And I will wait a few weeks, I think, just to see if they add that. The same can be said of Lies and Rain. Now, this is a brilliant game, beautiful graphics, very small team. It does have 90 hertz native, and is it 120? I think it might be 120 on the Pro. Is that one? Or it's I'm not sure. No, it certainly has a lot of graphical adjustments that you can make. So you can calibrate the graphics to a much higher degree than console games usually get on Of Lies and Rain. And for example, you can choose what kind of anti-aliasing it uses or no anti-aliasing at all. That's what I always choose. Because I definitely prefer jaggies and clarity to smoothness and a little bit blurrier, slightly lower resolution look to it. Give me jaggies every time. Just make it as clear and sharp as possible, and I will put up with the jaggies. Absolutely. And I'm happy that you can do that in Of Lies and Rain, and it does look gorgeous in the headset. Very, very clear, very nice graphics. Yes, but that does not use capacitive touch also, and I have messaged the devs about that, and they do intend to look at this in the new year. So although it pains me, it's another game that I have bought, which I will be waiting to play. It's just a sign of the times, these very small teams. Sometimes you can give them the benefit of the doubt, on these types of omissions or problems at launch, especially with Of Lies and Rain. Of course, they tried to, well, I think they did release that game on all platforms at the same time. Is that right? No, is that not right? That might be another game. But they certainly have developed that game for multiple platforms by a very, very small team, and it's a lot of work, of course. So, yeah, in some circumstances, you can certainly give them a bit of, benefit of the doubt on that. And they have said that they're going to work on that next year. So, capacitive touch for Of Lies and Rain, hopefully that will come next year, hopefully early next year. Because in that game you have to read quite a lot as well. So you spend a lot of time holding sort of these data logs and reading, and it's an important part of getting sort of the world building. And I do want to do that. And again, it's just holding that grab button in for like minutes at a time. It's not comfy. Do not like it. It blows my mind that this gets past R&D. Like, it's pretty simple function, and in Of Lies and Rain, they are already using capacitive touch for the animation of the hands. So you can just rest your finger on the grab button and your finger will move in game world. So they're already using it, just not for actually holding items. I'm not a dev. I don't know how these things come to pass, but they have said they're going to work on it, so that's good. But fantastic game, really atmospheric, and a great sort of single player adventure that I can't wait to get my teeth stuck into once that's sorted. But I will wait because that is so important to me. Another one I've been playing a lot recently is Into Black. Another one that looks fantastic in the headset, really smooth frame rate, great use of OLED screen, the blacks, the colours, the bright colours, and it has got fantastic combat. Whoa, the combat in this game, like, I would recommend playing it on hard mode. if not above, if maybe higher than that, if you can manage it. But I'm currently playing on hard mode, and it is just so visceral, so fast and responsive, and you have such freedom of movement that you're zipping around whilst engaged in these battles. It is really fun, and it's basically like spelunking game. Going into um, caves and looting loads of various resources and going back to base and leveling up and this kind of stuff. Uh, yeah, but really, really fun game. I've really enjoyed Into Black so far. I can definitely recommend that. Apparently, you can play multiplayer as well, but I am almost exclusively a single player, mainly because I don't get the sort of time at the right times of day to be able to play online without you know without monopolizing the living space that I'm in and disturbing my partner. So yeah. But having said that, there's a couple of other multiplayer games that I've played recently, and the first one is VRacer Hoverbike. So thanks to AJ with a PSVR Underground for leading the charge to get this game over to PSVR 2, and it is gorgeous in the headset, very clear, runs at 90, 120 on the Pro, I believe, and it's obviously a hoverbike game. It is the most similar thing to Wipeout we've had yet, and it feels really cool. Feels really good to play because you have this sort of lean mechanic, so you're actually leaning your body to go around corners, which works a lot better than the other bike game that came out recently. His name I can't remember, and that other bike game forced you to use the handlebars in an unnatural way. So it made you do this with the handlebars, which is not how you ride a motorbike. You ride a motorbike like this, you know, pushing forward and pulling backwards like this to go on corners. You do not go like that with the handlebars. So it's a bit unnatural, a bit uncomfortable to play that game. Um, but yeah, V-Racer Hot Bike is much more fun in my opinion. Very cool game. Yeah, I just can't, if you love racing games and you were waiting for a Wipeout game, this is basically this is good enough. This is good enough. Gorgeous, loads of tracks, good challenge to it. Yeah, cool game. The other one, of course, was Rush Apex Edition. So yeah, again, this is a community-led effort that got this game brought to PSVR 2. It seems. A game that was out on PSVR 1, devs didn't have any plans to take it to the new headset until this community sort of led drive to bring it over. And that's a really cool game. I actually tried to play this game lying on my belly to see if that would be more immersive because it's a wingsuit game, so you're flying down these hills. And I thought, let's just see if it's possible because I couldn't quite get that to work on PSVR 1, so I tried it. You can't do it. You cannot play Rush Apex Edition lying on your belly, no matter how hard you try. It is not comfortable. The control method, you just can't get it to work. The way the arms have to be free to move up and down if you're lying on your belly at the same time, you can imagine it's just no, doesn't work, unfortunately. So I played it stood up, and that was fine. But yeah, that's a cool game. Decent enough graphics. It's a very unique game. We haven't got anything else like it. This sort of wingsuit simulator feel to the gameplay. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Again, gonna have much more legs on it if you are a multiplayer gamer. I don't know how much time you get out of it. If it's just solo, we shall see. We shall see how long I spend in it as a solo player. I don't think it's going to be a huge amount, but it is fun for what it is so far. What else have we got? Well, I did go back into Overdark. Overdark is like a horror sort of puzzle game, a haunted house sort of vibe to it, and it's very atmospheric, very good graphics. I like being in that game world. There was a couple of puzzles that I kind of got stuck with. It wasn't very clear what I was supposed to be doing. A couple of bits where it's sort of awkward to play. For example, you had to sneak past this zombie-looking guy, and it's very easy to move too fast, to do some kind of movement, whether it's with your hands or head or anything, or turning even. It's very easy to accidentally trigger him capturing you. So there's a couple of moments like that where you just have to be mindful of the game's sort of limitations. But overall, Overdark is a really cool, really atmospheric puzzle game. And if you're looking for something horror based and you've not tried that out yet, I'd say it's worth a look, definitely. But yeah, so my plate is full PSVR 2 at the minute. Um, it's been ridiculous. But yeah, a couple of games there that I'm having to wait for patches. And let's not even talk about Wanderer. That's another one. Already got it on disc. Thank God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What are they called? Mighty Eyes, is it? Who did Wanderer? Thank you for doing a disc version. But I will be waiting until next year when that combat patch is finally with us. And fingers crossed, they're still going to do a PS5 Pro performance enhancement update. So we shall see. But the backlog is ridiculous. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know why I'm buying games. I've already got a backlog of dozens. But this is how it goes, isn't it? We are eating good. So yeah, just to sort of cap it all off, I think we are eating good. We're in a good place given the restrictions, the constraints placed upon us by the current VR landscape, and the you know the struggles that it has inherently for a medium, as a medium to grow. Uh, you know, those of us that already love it just think, well, of course it'll blow up. It's amazing. But that's not clear until you've tried it. And getting people in a headset is not easy. So that's it, guys. All right, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.